Top 10 terrifying objects in haunted museums. When your mama scolded you for touching something you weren't supposed to, perhaps she knew what she was saying. Stay to the end, because in a minute, we'll tell you about the top 10 terrifying objects that have been locked away in museums. Let's get started. Number 10. The Great Bed of Ware. A carpenter by the name of Jonas Fosbrook built this bed in 1590. He intended it to be slept on by royalty, but it seemed the gods had other plans for his work. Presently, you can view it at the Victoria and Albert Museum. The bed is so huge that it can contain up to 4 couples at once. Couples who slept on it reported that it was haunted, and the ghosts haunting it usually came to life, especially when sex was being performed on it. The couple doing these acts would usually be pinched by a mysterious entity as they engaged in the intimate deeds. The pinching would continue until they stopped whatever it was they were doing. This ghost may in fact be Josh's ghost, and he especially disliked the fact that it was being slept on by commoners. The bed itself was moved a lot from inn to inn, and the same incidents happened everywhere it went. The ghost would harass such commoners for getting comfortable on it. So we can conclude that Josh seems to be a snobbish or prudish ghost. Number 9. The Mummy's Curse. In this one, a sarcophagus is missing its cover or lid. This cover is supposed to be hiding the remains of an Egyptian woman of high standing. Scientists have figured she may have died between 950 and 900 BC. It has since been acquired by a British museum, but before then, it left a trail of death and disaster, prompting observers to see it as cursed. It was first unearthed at the beginning of the 19th century, and the 4 young men who brought it eventually died mysterious deaths. 2 of those died in shooting accidents, while the other 2 died of poverty. In the past, some even suggested it may have caused the sinking of the Titanic, but the conspiracy was unsubstantiated because the coffin was never on the ship, but was sitting pretty in a museum at the time. Number 8. The Haunted Shop Ledger. This ledger was donated to Preston Manor, which is situated in the Brighton municipality. Before then, it belonged to the Kent family, which claimed the ledger was cursed. They said it brought about plagues of ghostly apparitions and strange visions. But what was it about a mere ledger that could cause all this trouble? The ledger dates back to World War I, but it was found inside the brick wall when a worker was tearing down a house in 1988. This worker was happy to take this ledger home as a souvenir. He also showed it to his daughter, but soon enough, they both started experiencing strange visions. There were incidents involving male, female, and child ghosts. The daughter was even told by one of the ghosts that the ledger must be returned to Brighton on the day marking the centenary of its first entry. That date fell in December 1915. The worker quickly returned the ledger to Brighton and the local museum there. Number 7. The Ghostly Tulip Staircase. This staircase is the largest object on our list. It's actually a self-supporting spiral staircase, the first to ever be built in Britain. It's situated in the Queen's House of Royal Museums. Anne of Denmark called it home when betrothed to King James I. Nothing crazy happened until 1966. A group of tourists were admiring the stairs, and a vicar amongst the crowd took some pictures he planned to develop once he got home to British Columbia. That's when he discovered he had caught the apparition of a ghost on his camera. Since then, those stairs have been constantly observed for any more ghostly sightings, but none have materialized. Although, as recently as 2002, a staff worker says she caught the apparition of a ghost crossing the stair landing before disappearing into the wall. Number 6. The Cursed Amethyst. This gem was passed down through 3 generations, and yet it was able to do its damage. It belonged to Colonel Ferris, who stole it from a temple in India during an uprising. Afterwards, he suffered a bad fate, and his health deteriorated, resulting in his death. Before then, he had willed it to his son, who equally suffered a similar fate to his father. The son finally passed it on to Edward Heron Allen, a 19th century polymath. Heron was keen enough to observe that the jewel Mabin was in fact cursed, so he had it put away in a bank vault, It was placed in 7 scalable deposit boxes, and a pendant note forbade anyone from touching it until 33 years had passed from the time of Heron's death. Heron had previously tried to get rid of it, but it always returned to him mysteriously. Upon his death, Heron's daughter donated it to the Natural History Museum. Number 5. The Koh-i-Noor Diamond. This diamond was unearthed in the 13th century. It is one of the world's largest cut diamonds at a whopping 105 carats. It is also rumored to carry a curse, irrespective of the fact that it is now part of the British Crown Jewels. Long before now, its first owner was Ranjit Singh, who founded the Sikh dynasty, but it was subsequently acquired by the East Indian Company and passed on to the British royal family, who were colonial rulers of India at the time. The Indian, Pakistani, and Iranian governments all claim it belongs to them. This is why it is cursed, because so many entities are after it. There are theories that it places a curse on whoever wears it, with the exception of women. Fortunately, its more recent owners have been women who have remained uncursed. An ancient Hindu text reads, "He who owns the diamond owns the world, but will also know its misfortunes. Only a god or a woman can wear it with impunity." Number 4. The Catskill Crone. The crone was discovered by hikers in an abandoned cave in the Catskills mountain range. The surrounding area was known to host occultic rituals in the past. The pair of hikers described the effigy as having nails driven into where its eyes were supposed to be. It also had a hangsman noose tied around its neck. Against their better judgment, the hikers decided to take the figure with them. Once they got home, they barely saw the apparition of a woman and got a whiff of the smell of pond water. Soon after that, they would hear some loud knocking and banging. At some point, the hiker would wake up in the middle of the night with a strong, inexplicable feeling that someone was watching. This artifact has since been dropped off at the Traveling Museum of the Paranormal and Occult. Number 3. The Dark Mirror. This is yet another object that has been sent to the Traveling Museum of the Paranormal and Occult. It is simply referred to as the Dark Mirror. Its first owner purchased it at a psychic fair, and once it was brought back home, it showed terrible visions to whoever looked upon it. The mirror is said to reflect the greatest fears of its viewers. Some people have seen themselves getting really old and becoming dust while looking in the mirror. Essentially, it shows you dark events that must come to pass. Some visitors to the museum have even reported seeing their dead remains while looking in the mirror. Number 2. The Hope Diamond. The Hope Diamond is the world's most famous diamond, and it originally belonged to the French aristocracy. We know all about what happened with the French Revolution, and perhaps the curse of the Hope Diamond was the reason. Apart from that, anyone who has ever owned the diamond always dies a horrific death. The National Museum of Natural History has held the rights to the diamond since 1958, so the trial of curses has been halted ever since. But before that, there was the death of a mother and a car crash that killed a 9-year-old. Then there's the owner, who was institutionalized in a mental facility. There is also a suicide and being torn to pieces by wild dogs, or even a French mob. We've already mentioned the French Revolution, where King Louis XVI and his wife Marie Antoinette owned the diamond, but ended up being toppled during the revolution. Number 1. The Goddess of Death statue. This statue has killed countless families by its presence alone. Presently, it sits at the Royal Scottish Museum, and it truly deserves its name. It has indeed brought about multiple deaths for whichever family owned it at any given time. It is carved from limestone and was discovered in Cyprus in 1878. It was originally made as far back as 3500 BC. Nowadays, we know better than to play with ancient artifacts like this. Prehistoric times were not very religious and mostly involved a lot of dark magic, so you'd expect such artifacts to bring disaster. The members of the first family who ever owned it were wiped out within 6 years of acquiring it. They all died mysteriously, and the same fate awaited the next family to own it. The carnage only stopped when the last family to own it donated it to the museum. So that's it. Did the objects on our list creep you out? Let us know about it in the comments section. And remember to subscribe to our channel and click on the notification bell button to see more of our videos.